All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. I hope you can see and hear us okay. I feel like that's sort of the tagline of the century, isn't it? So I'm going to just do my crazy wave, like I'm just waving to Lisa, but I'm also waving to everyone. So if you are with us, comment, leave us a comment as we go through. Thank you for joining us. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We can't see you, but we'll be able to interact with you through the comments section. So if you have a question for Lisa or I, so we know it's an actual question rather than a comment or an observation, if you drop my favorite emoji before the question, which is the boom or the explosion emoji, then I know that's a question and we can feature that on the live, and I'll pin it to the chat. So do think of those questions as we go along, and feel free to get fully interactive as well with us. So yeah, a big welcome again to today's LinkedIn Live. Big news in the admin community. So I'm so glad that everyone's made it for this real, honest and real honest conversation about mindset, confidence, and the roadblocks that often hold us as assistants back from stepping into our full potential. I'm Jodie. I'm a C-suite executive assistant, speaker, mentor, and co-host of the Crowdy Files podcast. Crowdy is Craig and Jodie. Very cheesy, but it works. I'm passionate about helping EAs shift from being seen as task doers to strategic business partners. My personal mission, I help ambitious and assistants build their confidence and elevate visibility, future-proof their careers by owning their value and stepping into leadership. I'm here because I've lived the journey from being invisible and going through to influential, I would say. And I want the same for every assistant out there. So today's chat is all about helping you believe what's possible and showing you how. So I am so pleased to be joined by someone I deeply admire, Lisa. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Please introduce yourself to everyone on LinkedIn Live.
All right. I know I have a lot of, hopefully, I know a lot of you that are out there today. So you know a little bit about my background already. But I am a leadership coach, and I'd say about 80% of my clients are executive assistants. And my path getting here has definitely been like crazy. I was a teacher, then an EA, then a marketing manager, then a sales and marketing manager, director of customer care, VP, climbed my way up to the chief roles, and then totally pivoted into recruiting, but I totally missed coaching. I missed developing people. I missed leading in those ways. So I started doing that on the side. And then eventually I said, quit my 9 to 5 and let me just focus full time on doing what I love, which is helping people develop their leadership skills so that they can step into whatever they want next.
That's amazing. You do so much as well. I was just reading again through your profile, and it's jam-packed with some real gems of information there. So I encourage everyone to connect with both of us, send that connection request or follow us, whatever you prefer, and also use this time to network with each other. Yeah, communicate in the chat. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're watching and listening. I was going to say listening in from, but let us know where you're watching from today. We'd love to see where you are in the world as well. And remember, I said earlier, maybe for those who have just joined us, if you have a question for Lisa or I, just drop it in the chat. And so we know it's a question, if you just put the boom emoji, which is my favorite emoji, in case you haven't guessed yet, in front of the question, so we know it's a question and we can pin that to the screen. But we are here today to dive into how your mindset can either unlock or limit your career. And this really resonates with me so much. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to pay it forward and amplify it as well on my platform, because it can be such a penny drop moment for assistants who are looking for the next thing and just don't know quite how to get there. So Lisa, we've got a few questions ready for you. But before we go into that, the confidence shifts that make executives take us seriously. How would you advise any assistant looking for personal professional growth to kind of navigate those sort of stuck moments we seem to come across?
You know, confidence is really the superpower of everything leadership. And it's hard to say, here's what you have to do to have confidence. But when it's missing, you feel it's missing. And you may have all of those skills, but still struggle to be seen just because of the lack of confidence. You might be staying quiet, you might be second guessing yourself, waiting for permission. And then the opportunities go to someone else. You've got to have that confidence, and that doesn't mean you have to be the loudest in the room, of course. It just means that you own your voice, even if it's shaky at first, right? When you're confident, you don't wait to be noticed, you show up. So speak up in those meetings, get yourself into those meetings, share your ideas, advocate for your value, and trust your own judgment. When you trust yourself and feel that confidence, then others will also trust you and feel confident in you.
It's contagious, isn't it? Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
such yeah, it really is contagious. And thank you. I can see people joining us in the chat. Darcy, I see you from New York. Hello, how are you? Suzanne, Zwadi. Um, yeah, oh gosh, we got lots of people joining from everywhere. Mihaela, you're commuting from your train back in the beautiful Kentish countryside. Oh, how lovely.
Yeah,
Oh, that's kind of not too far
love
from
that.
me. So thank you for joining us. If you've got a question, drop it in the chat with the boom emoji at the beginning so we know it's a question. And we'll treat this as a bit of a live coaching session, almost like free
Yeah.
coaching. So make full use of this LinkedIn Live. It's going to go really quickly. So make sure you think of something to ask us. So we'll be answering all your questions, by the way, throughout. So drop them in the chat and we'll kind of weave them in as we go, if that's okay. So Lisa, again, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for that high level overview, like an intro into what we're going to speak about. Let's get into it. So I've got a couple of questions already planned for you.
Great.
They're kind of like interview style questions, but it's, it is quite a friendly kind of chat. So don't feel
Sure.
too put off by my interview style. But you
Oh
coach so
no.
many. You're used to it, right? Yeah, you're used to it.
Yeah.
You coach so many EAs who feel unseen or stuck, right? So from your experience, what's one mindset shift that truly opens doors and starts to move someone forward?
Mindset is, I feel like some people think of it as something kind of frou-frou-y, like, making a vision board, or just hoping for the best, right? But it's really so much more than that. When you're talking about mindset, it's truly a shift. You're growing so that you're seeing beyond tasks, right? But it's the way you think of things. So instead of thinking like I'm just an assistant, you think I am a key business partner who keeps the ship sailing. Um, Keeping the mindset is what keeps you going forward. It's helping you take initiative. It's helping you self-advocate. You see possibilities, not limitations, and you invest in yourself. And if you don't have that mindset to know that you're worth it, which is similar to the confidence, right? To know
Mm.
that you can get past it. And really, everyone has different blocks. Some people have, imposter syndrome, and that's what's holding them back. Some people have fear, maybe it's fear of failure or fear of knowing what to start, but everyone's got their one thing. And I think the biggest thing is that you have to identify what is that one thing, and then take your mindset from I can't do this to how can I do this? And then you can figure anything out.
It's so important. And this is what I kind of explain to my mentees as well. If you're stuck in that mindset of what I call serial learning, you're always wanting to learn something. You're always going on the next course or the next webinar like this, or you're trying to absorb so much, but your personal development is not kind of in line or going at the same rate of knots as your professional development. It's going to be like a little bit of a mismatch. So you're going to start feeling, oh, I can't do this. I've got all this information. I don't know what to do with it. So how do you feel about that, where, your personal and professional development need to kind of move at the same rate to make that professional development so much more easier to implement?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to step into it when you don't feel like you've earned where you are. So you have to remind yourself that you have. And you kind of nailed it. Imposter syndrome, which is, one of the biggest barriers, is when where you are professionally is further along than where you feel you should be. Like people see you here, but you're still seeing yourself here. But that's how everyone grows. No one steps into that role knowing what they're doing. No one before you, no one after you. They step in, they figure it out, and you can too.
Yeah, it is really important. Hi everyone. I can see the chat getting lively now. Kim, hi Kim. She's from sunny Buckinghamshire, and Sarah. So they're all starting to drop in now. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for staying in the London office to watch this. It's coming up as LinkedIn user, but I feel like it might be D. Is it D? It might be. Alexandra, Patience, hi Miranda. We see you all. Suzanne. So if you've got any questions, drop them in the chat. So it can be about anything. This is a live coaching session. It's free, so make the use of it. Make use of Lisa's time as well. She is absolutely amazing. Connect with us. Check out the profiles, check out the offerings. And if you've got any follow-up questions, just don't hesitate to drop us a DM either. So
Yeah.
another question I've got for you as well, Lisa. It comes from a place of what I didn't have access to as well, and that's how I pay it forward now in what I do outside of my role as an EA. So confidence in action. What are some practical ways? And I say an EA, but I'm kind of including EAs, PAs, VAs, office managers, business support professionals, the whole 9 yards. So,
Right.
what are some practical ways we can build that confidence, especially in those moments where we're stepping into unfamiliar or really high stakes situations? Have you got any strategies that you would share on building your self confidence?
I think half of it is building your confidence, and the other half is appearing confident. And sometimes those things line up. But first and foremost, you have to be in alignment with where you're going, where you want to go. That has to feel right for you to be willing to take those steps. So that's first and foremost. But secondly, knowing your audience is huge when you are trying to show your confidence, trying to be visible, trying to really be taken seriously, speak their language. So whoever you're talking to, that's who you're speaking to. So if your executive, for example, likes a certain type of communication, make sure that's the language you're speaking with them. That's something they're going to respect if we're mirroring them. And if it's someone else and they prefer it a different way, we kind of cater to them so that they are understanding what we're trying to share with them. It gets us on the same level. Also, managing your energy and not just your time. When we are wanting to look confident, feel confident, we can't be rushing around, right? We cannot be chaotic, running around, trying to solve everything. Now, that may be what's actually happening, but we want to look like we're having calm in chaos. And
Yeah.
when we look calm, we look like a leader. We look like we have the confidence. If we're busy and around, we look a little scattered, not busy. And then, whenever you do share, when you can find ways to speak up, make sure that you're really owning the room. Again, not doesn't mean you have to be the loudest, but it's not really about being extroverted. It's about being intentional. So you're making eye
Mm.
contact, you're listening actively, you're speaking with purpose, and you really don't have to say much, but when you do, let it land. Let it land well. Make sure that people hear what you have to say. And then always anticipate, don't just respond to things. Have that back information in your back pocket so that you can bring it out. And that's what I keep coming back to, and I'll say time and again, is find a way to get in those rooms, because the more rooms you're in, the more you know, the more you know, the more thoughts you can have that are going to make sense and really let others see that you've elevated your thinking.
Yeah, that's so key. It just sounds like when you're talking it through like that, it just sounds something so simple, but it's so surprising how we lose sight of the simplicity behind progressing personally and professionally. And I think it's good that we can have these sort of sessions where we can just serve as a bit of a reminder that you have totally got this. You have totally got the myriad of skills that is required to be a leader in your own right. You have skills that will push you forward. It's just a case of accessing them, right? So, just feeling that confidence to speak up. And once we do, I was the world's worst person for speaking up. I used to keep everything in my head and then get out of the room or the meeting and think, oh, I wish I said this, I wish I said that. And it's just understanding who's blocking you. And when you have
Well,
that open
yeah.
conversation with yourself, you think, "Oh my god, it's me. It's just me."
It is just you, and you may have the fear that someone else in there is going to judge what you're saying, and that could be holding you back. But in the end, it's just you. And self advocacy, I made a post about that, I think it was today, is one of the most important things you can do. And that doesn't just mean, brag about yourself, which you do have to do that. Your boss does not keep track of everything you're doing. You have to share it. And so whether that's, I like to think of it as keeping a list just like you would if you were going to make a resume. All of your wins, write those down, bring them up at your regular meetings, give those updates. The more you update people, the more they feel like they don't have to ask you for updates, the more confident they are in you, and the better you can perform. But ultimately, it's advocating for anything you need. And that may be a new program, it may be delegating something else. This is something that has been in my area, but I think it may belong better with so and so. That will free me up to do more high level strategic planning. And so, really advocating for those things that you need.
Yeah. It's surprising that, yeah, Darcy's just dropped that in the comment now, document everything. And it's surprising how much power there is in words, written form, articles, or journaling as well. Because when you write it down, when you type it out, you really start to believe that as well, and you can get into it before you take the next step of actually verbalizing it. And just to take a moment to document things, I advise my mentoring and coaching clients to fill out the Friday wins tracker. It's so simple, but it makes such a massive impact when you just document everything for the week. So how many of you will do so much in a week and you get to the end of the week, or maybe it's your Monday morning check-in, and you get asked, so what have you been up to, or what's been happening at work, or what have you done this week or last week? And you think, I've done so much, I cannot even begin to verbalize this. And we end up reverting back to the default, which is, oh, so much, or yeah, or so there's a lot going on, or I'm really busy. But that everyone's busy. My dad is busy growing tomatoes in his retirement. I'm busy. It doesn't quantify, it doesn't quite match and have the same impact as if you lead with impactful statements, time, money saved, speaking that language of the business. So I would encourage you all to start documenting your wins, your personal wins, your professional wins, as tiny and as meh as they might come across. Once you kind of get that down, they amount into something much bigger.
And you'll be able to see, am I being a task doer, or am I working on strategic things that are really going to show what I can do? When you're looking at that list that you make sure it's not just the task. It's not just I did
Mm.
this, but what did you do over and beyond that, to stand out? I mean, when I was at my first job past teaching and started as an EA, I had, at least 4 promotions within that company within 3 years, because I was not just going hard. And I don't think everyone should have to go hard all the time. That was just that phase in my life where that was my goal, and that's what I was doing. But I had to advocate for everything. So I did have a great leader who saw my value, and she also advocated for me. But I just had to learn not to be shy, just say
Mhm.
what I need, ask, hey, I noticed this. Can I take care of it? I worked for a home builder, and they did not have a customer care department. And so my boss, the VP of sales and marketing, did not like to take customer complaint calls. Most people don't. I actually love taking them because you get to hear what's wrong and you get to fix it, but you also get to fix it for everyone else going forward. And
Right.
so after they had me start that department from scratch, and I grew that department from 37% of customer satisfaction, which is so embarrassing because there was no department to take care of them. So, but within a year, it was up to 83%. And for me to be able to say that, to show that, to advocate for myself, to have the reports to back it up is what got me into the VP position, because
Mm.
they saw that I was doing the work. But yeah, they're not going to notice that they're just getting fewer customer calls. I have to tell them this is what's
You have
happening.
to tell them. You have to make it known of what you're doing and why and how it affects the business and how it affects the teams. They're not always interested in, the I kind of rhetoric,
Right.
how flip it back, I did this, but it reflects on you and the business like that. I just want to just go into the comments because I can see you all leaving comments. Hi, oh my gosh, Karen in Barbados. Oh,
Ooh, love that, Karen.
oh, yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, many a nice time in Barbados at Oystins, Fish Fridays down there. Hello, hello, Sarah again. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat with a boom emoji at the beginning so we know they're a question. We've probably got time for one because we're already approaching the half an hour stage. Um, I've got another question or a topic to move on to as well, which is, again, something that I really struggled with and something that kept me back at a certain level for absolute years, I would say, is breaking that plateau. So for the EAs, PAs, VAs, office managers, business support professionals, all of us who's competent, trusted, but feels like you've hit a ceiling, that kind of you've topped out. What advice do you have for pushing past that plateau and stepping into a more strategic space? Is there kind of the one thing? Is it one thing, or is it a collection of shifts that we can really start to push through?
I think, it's always going to be about the collection and the nuances. And that's what it's so hard to, say, how do you know, display executive presence, for example, right? Like, how are you going to label that and talk through that? Well, we do that through coaching, but it's so much that's combined into one, right? But when you feel that plateau, and that's what I hear from and the EAs and executive business partners I work with, they are all like already really high performers. Some of them want to stay as an EA, but they want to be seen as the strategic partner they are, and not just as the task doer. So that starts with obviously thinking strategically. And when you're working on things, really thinking, how does this relate to the mission? How does this relate to the company? How does this relate to what my boss wants versus checking something off the list? So that's, part of it. But you have to elevate yourself because other people can't do it. So when you're consistent, when you're visible, when you prioritize self-care, you communicate clearly, concisely, and take initiative. This is the one I can't say enough. All of the jobs I did, I saw it there and I said, hey, I can work on this. And it might have meant I had to work late. It might have meant that I had to push something else off. But one thing that really helps us stand out is knowing the difference between what's urgent and what's important. And sometimes it's both, but most of the time, what I'm finding is people are working on the urgent, but they're really neglecting the important. So
Mhm.
what's important? What's important is doing strategic things. What's important is self-development. What's important is having the conversations with your boss. They don't know that you want to be a superstar unless you tell them, like,
Mm.
hey, here's me. This is what I want for my growth. How can you help me get there? And most of the time,
Yeah.
if they know that, that's really impactful. In fact, when people sign up for my coaching, even if they're paying for it themselves, I always encourage them to have a conversation with their boss and say, hey, this is something really important to me. And I'm going to be stepping into this coaching to have leadership development. I would love it if you could help, if there were professional development funds to help with that development. But this is something I'm willing to pay for on my own. It's important to me, and I would love your help along the way. And that conversation alone has already gotten you opportunities you would not have had otherwise.
Absolutely. And it takes me back to something that happened to me is I think I felt stuck for so long because my mindset was stuck in the thought of the manager can sort that out. Tell me what you want me to do. What do you think I should be doing? It's your problem, not mine. Come up with a list of the things I need to do. And what I realized is I was putting my own learning and development in the hands of someone else, and it
Yeah.
wasn't a priority for them. But as soon as I took back that control and bit the bullet and said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway, with or without you. And it's kind of being prepared to put your money where your mouth is,
Yeah.
isn't it? To think, yes, I can actually afford to do this. I found this, it's accessible, it's achievable, whether
And I'm
they
worth
fund it
it.
or not. And I am worth it. Yeah. And that's what's opened so many doors for me and kind of propelled my growth really quickly is when I took control of my learning and development for the style that I know works for me. So I'd really encourage you, if you're sitting on the fence of personal and professional development, is just take in charge of you. No one's going to be better suited to understand what you need
Yeah.
than you, and be prepared to put your hand in your pocket if you can, but also to point out that there's so many free information, webinars, YouTubes as well, that you can self-educate. So I did it on an
Oh,
absolute shoestring budget, believe me. So if any of you need help getting started with just accessing free information, let me know. And then it kind of progresses into something a bit deeper. We're coming to
speaking
the
of
end.
that, I do
Yeah.
have a free class on Thursday. It's in my featured section. We're talking about speaking with authority and confidence. So if you'd
Make
like to
use of
join,
that.
it's not too late. You can just jump on my featured section and sign up if you'd like to give it a try.
There we go. There's always something out there. And I'm speaking at a free webinar with EA How To tomorrow as well, on connecting the dots and how to be a strategic assistant and drive change and stand out. So there's always someone who knows someone, right, who has access to free learning and development. So don't think that you're stuck. Um, Miranda, yeah, being an EA, you think to be, I'm just going to pin this one so we can all see it. So, yeah. So, Miranda says, being an EA, you need to think strategically and constructively, communicating by being concise. Mostly clear communication is so important. It is, isn't it? It's an underrated thing to just be clear. And sometimes it's quite frightening. I'm a confident introvert, so I really struggle with that. as so coming forward and just saying what I actually need and want is so mind blowing for me. But once you do it, you realize it was just a case of treating the kind of recipient as a human, as you would anyone, and not holding such high stakes on the conversation, and just having the conversation.
Right. Well, and ultimately, it's for the company, it's for your boss. You're wanting to do these higher level things and push yourself, and they benefit from you're not being selfish by doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah, let's just show this one quickly before we have to go. In organizations with both chief of staff and an executive assistant to the CEO, what is the intended and ideal balance of their involvement in strategic decision making? Considering my past experience, where my responsibility shifted towards supporting the chief of staff's strategic needs, what are some key questions an EA can ask during role definition or onboarding to ensure their primary focus remains on directly supporting the CEO's strategic initiatives. That's really interesting. I don't know if we're going to be able to answer that in full, but I think it comes down to really clear communication and boundary setting. What is your role? What is my role? And where do we overlap? And how are we figuring that part out? Are we covering each other? What are the needs? And what are my skills as well to offer that overlap? Um, the chief of staff whole thing is very wishy-washy in terms of what it is and what it isn't, depending on, and what I mean by that is depending on what sector you work for, what company you work for, how they define the role. So it's very difficult to answer that one because we don't know what that chief of staff role really does in that particular organization. But do you have any closing thoughts on that, Lisa?
Just on that does get tricky when you have both roles there. So, like you said, just clear communication. It doesn't mean you need to stop thinking strategically, but it may mean that you're sharing those ideas with the chief of staff more than you're sharing them with your executive. Just depends on really the whole feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll learn loads as well. Maybe you're kind of co-inhabit, if you like, in that work setting. So you will learn loads and they might learn loads from you. So you might kind of cross-pollinate the whole setting at work, which would be really cool. Right, we're
Yeah.
coming to the end. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you do have any questions, you can always drop them in the chat. The recording will stay live in your feeds for a couple of weeks. So you can repost it, add your thoughts, tell us what you thought, tell us your key takeaways. That's always a good start to get visible on LinkedIn. Add your 2 pence, as I like to say, add your thoughts. What would you add to this conversation? Repost, reshare, and you can always come back to it for a couple of weeks and get in touch with Lisa or I if you have any further questions. We'd be so happy to help or point you in another direction if we can't help you personally. But Lisa, thank you so much for agreeing to this. I hope it
Absolutely.
can
Thanks,
be,
Jody. You're the best
yeah,
host.
one of many. Oh, thank you so much. So it was nice to have you all in attendance as well. And yes, yep, thank you to everyone in the chat that's still going now. So thank you and good night from Crawley. And where are you, Lisa?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma. All right. Okay. Well, bye everyone. And please tune in and sign up for our next LinkedIn Live when it becomes available.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.